Hey everyone, Ryan here at etrailer. Today on our 2021 Ford F-150, we're going to be showing you how to install the Roadmaster Crossbar-Style base plate kit. But before we get into that, let's just take a minute. We'll check out this setup and make sure it's going to work for you. Right off the bat, I do want to address one of the main questions that we get asked in regards to setting your Ford up to get flat towed, and that's what parts am I going to need? So there's 5 main components. Your base plate, your tow bar, your safety cables, your diode or tow bar wiring, as well as your supplemental braking system. This is what the front of your truck can look like whenever you're not hooked up to your motorhome and flat towing around, which I think is important. You know, you don't want to have something super obvious and taken away from the appearance. And with this base plate, I like it. You know, don't really get much better, to be honest with you. It just comes through the openings here where the factory tow hooks were anyway, so nothing really looks out of place. And I also like the fact too that they give you a really nice bracket that bolts up behind your bumper and gives you a great spot to mount up your electrical connector and your breakaway switch for your other flat towing components. Whenever you are ready to hook up, you'll have these removable arms. And the way that these are going to work is they'll go into the base plate and you rotate it about a quarter turn. They're going to lock into position. Same thing over here. And now with that said, this is a crossbar style base plate, meaning that there's another component that you're going to need to get that'll bolt to these, and you'll have a bar that comes across here, and then you're able to hook that tow bar up to it. So if you don't have that, you can always grab it here at etrailer, or if you are happening to use a tow bar that has that style of connection to it already included with it, that's a route you could take as well. I got our pieces attached to the base plate, and that's what I was talking about, these guys here. So there's 2 different types, I guess you could say. So we have a tow bar that kind of has the crossbar built into it. This is the Stowmaster. That's made by Roadmaster. These definitely aren't my favorite, just because they're kind of cumbersome and a little heavy and a little trickier to get set up, but they still do the job and get it done. So, you know, you could use something like this as far as the tow bar goes, or if you have a direct connect style tow bar, that'll work too. You would just get the crossbar that would attach these 2 pieces. It's kind of like this, but its own separate deal, and that would allow you to set up a tow bar that has the direct connect ends on it. This is what the vehicle can look like once you're all hooked up and everything, and you know, it's not too bad. I will be honest, as far as the crossbar type of base plate goes, I like them in certain scenarios, usually on small vehicles that sit real low to the ground. And I say it because using the crossbar type, it'll raise that attachment point up a little bit. But on the F-150 here, it works just fine. It'll get the job done and everything. But personally, I feel like the direct connect style of the base plate might be a little bit more ideal. You know, you just don't have as many parts to deal with and try to set up whenever you go to hook up to your coach. Other than that, when it comes down to it, you know, the base plate is going to get the job done and look pretty good too whenever you're not hooked up to your coach. Honestly, you know, if it were me and I was kind of starting from scratch, I would probably go with the direct connect style. Like I said before, just a few less parts to have to deal with. But if you're someone that already has, you know, maybe this type of tow bar and don't want to invest in another one because you're familiar with it, something along those lines, then this crossbar type base plate might make a little more sense for you in that particular situation. As far as the installation goes, you know, it's not too bad. I'd say it's kind of right in the middle as far as flat tow setups go, but don't get me wrong, you will have to remove your grill and the front bumper and you know, do a little bit of modifications to get everything to fit, which is pretty normal. But if this is something that you don't feel like messing with, don't have the time or place to work on it, you can always use our dealer locator network, and hopefully that can help you find a shop in your neighborhood that can help you out with something like this. But if you're doing it yourself, hang around, we'll go ahead and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here at the front of our truck, and you can go ahead and pop the hood. And first thing that we need to remove is this plastic radiator cover. There's going to be several push pin style fasteners that are holding it in place. Here's what these are going to look like, and you can use a trim tool or even a flathead screwdriver to get these out. You just pry up on the head of it, and then you can work the whole base out. And just work your way all the way across, whichever one you see holding this plastic cover in place, it's gonna have to get removed. We got a few more here. I already took a handful of them out on the other side of the truck because they're all the same, you know. Once I get this last one out, we should be able to lift up on our cover here. We'll just set this off to the side for now. Depending on your truck, you may or may not have these electrical connectors here. If you do, like ours, you need to disconnect them. So they both work the same. There's just a little tab that you can push on and release it. Same thing for that one there. And there's a little fastener kind of holding this wiring in place. I'm just going to pry up on that to release it from the front of our truck here. On each side of our truck, we're going to have two 10mm head bolts that we can remove. And from this point on, whatever we do to one side, we'll also do to the other side. It'll be set up the same. Moving to your front wheel wells, on the front edge here, there's going to be two 7mm head screws that we need to pull out. At this point, we can remove this little plastic section that runs along the whole front of our truck. And since we're going to be kind of working and potentially prying in this area, I put some painter's tape so we don't scratch anything. But what you can do, you start on the side here. And there's just some snaps kind of holding this in place. Just take your time, slowly work it off. Sometimes you might have to take a little tool, kind of push down on little clips holding it in. And you want to get each side to about this point. And then you just kind of continue to work underneath the headlight. So this whole piece is loose. Get the other side like this too, and then we can work on the center portion. Can just continue along, and I'm kind of pulling towards me and up a little bit. Like I said, I already had the other side to this point, and we can set this piece off to the side. With that piece gone, that'll expose an 8mm head bolt that's helping to hold our grill on. So we need to go ahead and get that removed from each side of our truck. You can get the grill removed now, and with this, it's just pressed in there. There's some little metal and plastic fasteners holding it in. And what I like to do is just try to kind of work everything loose. It feels like the top and the kind of middle section is free. It kind of feels like we're hung up in the bottom. And it almost feels like this little rubber seal is kind of hanging us up here. So I'm just kind of trying to pull out and up a little bit to get it over it. feels pretty good. Try to do the same thing over here. That's exactly what it was. That little rubber piece kind of loops around, you know, and holds on to it. Make sure we don't have any other electrical connectors or anything, which we don't, and we can set this off to the side. Since the bumper's going to have to come off, you want to make sure there's no electrical hooked up to it. And it looks like on our driver's side, we'll have one connector. Let's push down on the tab, separate it, and I'm going to release any of the little plastic fasteners holding the wiring on. That way everything's free and kind of out of the way. And then it looks like we'll have a couple more over here on our passenger side. There's this big one and then another one kind of buried down right here in this area. For these big ones, they work a little different. You want to push down on that little tab, and then you can pull up on the gray lever. That'll allow you to separate those. This one, I guess, has a little fastener on it too. And here's that other one there. Works the same as the one we did before. Just push down on the tab to release it. To remove the bumper beam, there's going to be a total of 6 21mm head nuts. So you have 3 on each side. And if you look at, you know, where the bumper beam attaches to the frame rail, you'll have one of the nuts being on the inside portion, and then you'll have 2 on the outside portion of the frame. And so we're going to want to remove these. I do suggest the first one you take off, go ahead and put back on a couple of turns, just hand tight. That way, when you get the rest of them off, the bumper beam isn't just going to fall off or anything like that. One thing that I do like to do is kind of make sure all of them are loose. So kind of just work each one, maybe 8 or 10 turns, and it seems to help, you know, prevent everything from kind of getting in a bind. I got all those nuts removed, and now we should be able to just pull straight back on our bumper and set it off to the side. Just wanted to give you a better visual of the studs that we're holding the bumper beam on. So there's that one on the inside portion I talked about, and these 2, and that's what the nuts are going to look like there. We can get our tow hooks removed. So you got these little rubber covers that just pop right off. And then there's 2 15mm head bolts holding the tow hook in. Go ahead and get these pulled out. Remove that, and then inside of the frame, that's what they were attached to, this little nut plate here. So get these out of our way. We can grab our base plate now, and these are going to be side specific, so check your instructions, make sure you have the right one. It's pretty obvious, you know, this big metal part here will sit on the outside of the frame. So the way this is going to work, these 2 holes in this are going to line up with the 2 holes in our frame that was holding on our tow hook. And you have 2 attachment points. So for this one, you're going to use this bolt and put on a split lock washer. It'll thread up through there, through the frame. And for this one, you have a longer bolt with the split lock washer. And those are going to thread up into this nut plate here. Now, I definitely suggest taking your hardware before you get too carried away here, and just make sure it threads in there easily, because sometimes what can happen, when these get powder coated, some could get into the threads and make it hard to deal with. And so you want to check it first, right? A lot of times it'll be fine. You can run this through. You might have to put a little pressure on it, but other times, you might run into it's really heavily coated or something, and you might have to really clean those threads out good. And if you find yourself in that situation, you can use this tap. You will have to get it separately. A lot of the hardware stores and auto parts stores will sell them, but that'll thread in there, and you can work it back and forth and pretty much make those threads like brand new again. And the tap that you could use, it's a 1/2 inch -20 NF thread pitch, so that'll match up to the bolt threads there. That way you don't damage them or anything like that. You also want to make sure to use red Loctite on all the hardware that we're going to use to secure the base plate. So just a drop or two on the threads will be sufficient. And get everything kind of lined up here. Let's start to get our base plate installed. So what we'll make sure and do is get both of these bolts started hand tight. So you can grab the base plate now and make sure it's straight and everything. Then we'll take a 3/4 inch socket and snug these bolts down. Now you want to make sure and come back with a torque wrench and tighten down these bolts to the amount specified in the instructions. Now we can use our base plate as a template to drill a hole through the frame. So this is going to be another attachment point. We're going to go through this side of the frame rail and completely through all the way to the other side. But before you make it through this side, before you go through the other side, I'm going to show you a trick that you can do to help keep some of these other components protected from the drill bit. So for now, I'm just going to focus on going right through this piece of metal here. Something you need to be careful of when you continue to drill straight through out the side of this part of the frame. Our intercooler is pretty close, and so we don't want to run the bit through carelessly and end up hitting it or anything. So to be on the safe side, I got a little piece of wood. I'm just going to kind of lodge it up there and at least offer a little bit of protection. If you drill and it punches through real quick, the wood should slow it down and give you an indication that you've gone far enough. Once you got hole drilled all the way through, you can take this real long bolt, put on your Loctite, and you have this big thick washer that's going to go in between the base plate and the frame. And take your bolt, push it through this side all the way out to the other side of our frame. Here's where the bolt comes out the other side of the frame. And you want to take another one of those big washers, put that on, and then take a split lock washer, put that on, and then just a regular hex nut. Put on the end of it and get it started hand tight. You can grab a 3/4 inch socket and a 3/4 inch wrench to hold that nut on the inside of the frame. We'll snug this down. And then change out to our torque wrench here and completely tighten it. We're able to come over to our bumper now and trim out a little section here. And this part you're going to have to refer to the instructions because, you know, they're all set up a little bit different. If you happen to have a trimmer model or active air shutter like we do, that's what this is. Or if you don't have this, it's a little bit different as far as the trimming and stuff goes. So be sure to check what you got and kind of go from there. But we need to trim a little bit of this out since this piece will move up and down whenever we're driving and everything, and our base plate will roughly be in this area. We don't want it to interfere, so that's why we're doing it. Pretty thin plastic. I'm just going to use a multi-tool to get it cut out. The base plate does come with this nifty bracket here, which gives you a great spot to mount up your electrical connectors and your breakaway switch and some of your other flat towing components. So we're going to use it. Give you a reference, we're over here on the driver's side of our bumper beam. And the way this will work, it's going to sit like that. So in our case, we have two 13mm head bolts that we need to pull out. It looks like some of the other trucks might have a fastener right there too. It sounds like a Torx bit, but just going to depend on your particular truck. We'll go ahead and pull these out with a 13mm. Minor bracket on up. Just make sure it's positioned how you want it. That seems to be pretty good there. We'll just snug these back down. Moving back to the front of our truck, in order for all this to clear that bracket that we put on, we are going to have to trim a little bit of it out. So again, check the instructions. And I'm going to use my multi-tool again here to remove this material. Now with everything cut out, we can grab our bumper, line it back up, and get it reinstalled the opposite way that we removed it. After putting the bumper on, I noticed that that bracket that we used on the back bumper for our electrical and everything, it was just ever so slightly hitting this and interfering with getting it all back on flush. I kind of thought that, but I was trying to avoid cutting this part just to give this more structural support, but not going to work out. So I came back with my multi-tool and just cut that flush. That way we won't have any interference and our bumper can go right back into place. With that little extra part trimmed, we should be in good shape now. So I'll get it reinstalled, and if I run into any other issues, we'll touch base on them. Then. But it looks like our bolts went right back through, and we can grab our hardware and get it all started. The front bumper went back on just like you'd expect it to. Didn't run into any other issues there, so good shape as far as that goes. And now would be a great time to think about installing some of your other flat tone components, like your wiring, parts of your braking system, things like that. And I say it because with the grill and that little plastic piece gone, makes it a lot easier to route wires down, you know, from the engine compartment down here to the front and things like that. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And then once I have that wrapped up, we can come back, get the grill and that plastic trim piece back into position.